David Ferriero, I'm the Archivist of the United States, and it's a pleasure to welcome you this morning, and especially those of you who are in the room, and a special welcome to those of you who are joining us online. And I have the pleasure of this morning of introducing Congresswoman Judy Chu. She was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in July 2009, becoming the first Chinese American woman elected to Congress. She represents the 27th Congressional District, which includes Pasadena and the West San Gabriel Valley. Dr. Chu currently serves on the House Judiciary Committee, where she is a member of the subcommittees on intellectual property and the Internet, as well as crime, terrorism, homeland security, and investigations. She also serves on the House Small Business Committee. In 2011, Dr. Chu was elected chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, which advocates for the needs and concerns of the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities across the nation. Dr. Chu founded and co-chairs the Congressional Creative Rights Caucus, which advocates for the copyright protections of those in the creative industries, such as music, film, and visual arts. She also serves in leadership of the House Democratic Caucus as a member of the Steering and Policy Committee. And in 2014, after years of work and outreach, Dr. Chu introduced legislation to create a national recreation area to preserve and sustainably expand access to the San Gabriel Mountains. And congratulations, President Obama followed your call for permanent protection and declared much of the area the newest national monument. Her first elective office was the Board of Education for Garvey School District in 1985. From there, she was elected to the Monterey Park City Council, where she served as mayor 3 times. She then was elected to the State Assembly, and then California's elected tax board, the State Board of Equalization. So please welcome the Honorable Dr. Judy Chu.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. I want to thank the National Archives and the Japanese American National Museum for organizing and hosting this event. This series of conversations on the future of civil rights tied to the 225th anniversary of the passage of the Bill of Rights is both timely and important in a way that we have not seen in years. Yesterday, I returned back from Washington, D.C., after our first week back in Congress post-election. And I can tell you that we Democrats in Congress are very, very concerned about the Bill of Rights. And with each succeeding announcement of cabinet secretaries, we are even more concerned. It is so relevant that we are having this conversation right here. You only need to look at some of the exhibits on Japanese internment here to find evidence of when we have let fear overcome our sense of justice. And that's a lesson that stays with me every day while I am in Congress, especially this week, with some people citing the imprisonment of Japanese Americans as a precedent to be used for registering Muslims. It is clear that our work to defend the values laid out in the Bill of Rights is not done. And that's why today's topic of immigration is particularly pertinent. This topic is especially relevant to me. In fact, when I was elected to Congress in 2009, my goal was to do comprehensive immigration reform, and that's why I joined the House Judiciary Committee, which is where immigration reform is done. I remember my grandfather, who came in 1906 and was a victim of the Chinese Exclusion Act, which was the only law passed by Congress to actually name a group for exclusion from this country. And so I know that we have to fight for a comprehensive law that will make sure that every immigrant is indeed welcome. Now, with the recent election, we know that we're unlikely to continue the gains that were made in the past few years. We actually had made progress. In fact, I was actually one of the 5 principal co-sponsors of the comprehensive immigration bill that actually could have passed. We had the votes to pass it had it been put by the Speaker on the floor. But now, considering the change in in Congress, we are going to be fighting just to hold on to what we have. Where just a few years ago we had a bipartisan majority of support for comprehensive immigration reform, now the conversation has turned to walls and deportation. This change in tone is especially alarming for dreamers, the immigrants who've been brought here as children, who lived, went to school, and laid roots here, only to be told that they may be deported to a country many of them have never known. And that is why when President Obama announced his plans to offer security to dreamers and their families by letting them work without fear of deportation, immigration advocates like myself cheered. I hosted an event in my district to encourage and help immigrants apply, as did many of my fellow Congress members. We never imagined the election of a candidate who would run on a policy of mass deportation. Now those programs, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, DACA, or the Deferred Action for Parents of Americans and Lawful Permanent Residents, DAPA, are certain to be undone, and the immigrants who applied are at risk. These hardworking and honest immigrant children and families provided extensive amounts of sensitive information to their government, including fingerprints and relatives' home addresses, with the understanding that it was not going to be used against them. We promised them security. Now they are facing a nightmare. And so it is up to us to act and to fight and protect their rights. Since the election of Donald Trump, I've heard cries from immigrants, not just in my district, but from around the country. My office has been flooded with calls from those who applied for DACA asking what they should do now. Many fear that after trusting the government and coming out of the shadows, that their personal information will now be used against them. So, the credibility of a government that promises to protect its people is at stake. But more importantly, so are the lives of hundreds of thousands who trusted us. This hits particularly close to home, as 1/3 of the people currently protected by DACA live here in California. So this week, I took action to avert this crisis by calling on President Obama to explore all legal options to protect those who trusted us from being put in danger. Now that Mr. Trump has been elected, we have just 2 months to keep the list of those who qualified for DACA and DAPA from becoming a list of targets for deportation. We're still exploring what options are available to protect immigrants' personal information, but one idea I put forward is an executive order stating explicitly that none of the information used for DACA and DAPA can be used for purposes other than those originally intended by those agreements. And since the Obama administration asked these immigrants to provide their information in good faith and for the purpose of providing relief from deportation, such an order would shield that information from going forward. Now, while President Trump could certainly undo that order, it would at least require an affirmative, conspicuous action on his part that would give notice to the country that he's using this list of names for his own goals of deportation. The ultimate goal, of course, must be comprehensive immigration reform. The need for immigrants both to support us demographically and economically will never end. It's at the core of our nation and what we are as America. And leaving millions to live in fear of the government is just not who we are. So I do remain optimistic that with more conversations like these and constant work with advocates and civil rights groups, that we will once again be on the track to a more just economy. So I thank you for your interest and for your hard work. Most of all, I thank you for coming together to be part of this very important conversation. Our work continues.